Written by JaxerSpots. When I moved into my house with my wife, we weren't that well off. I'd gotten fired a while back and my wife was working at a place that didn't really pay well. We had to move to accommodate me into my brand new job, and we were excited. We chose a small little house that was pretty cheap and we were pretty okay with it. We just wanted to be stable and finally be able to adopt a kid. We lived in that house for about 2 years when I heard some gnawing or scratching in the wood above the ceiling. God damn it was my first thought. We had mice. I knew what mice sounded like. This wasn't my first rodeo. They were cute in a rodent kind of way, but I knew that soon enough they would tear into anything we ever had. I had mice in my childhood home, and their poop was everywhere. We would be in real trouble if they ever made their way into the bedrooms. I wanted to set sticky traps or rat poison, but my wife was an animal lover. She convinced me to get the humane traps. We would set about 10 of those in the attic each night, and at least 7 traps would actually catch one of the bastards. We would then release them a few miles away in the woods, and then go back home and do everything over again. I was tired and annoyed at the practice. I didn't really care about the safety of the mice, but my wife would get so protective if she saw one and would nearly cry if she found a dead mouse. I would like to say that her behavior bothered me, but her kind heart was one of the reasons I even married her. So I just went along. Eventually, it turned out for the worst. The kitchen and the basement were completely overrun. No matter how many we caught, 20 more would appear. It was awful, and we had to throw away a lot of food that got infested. I was ready to buy rat poison, but my wife begged me not to. I knew she was stubborn, but she hit me with her classic spiel.
Why is it okay if we kill a mouse, but not kill a dog? They're both living things. They didn't choose to create a problem for us.
I would argue back sometimes, but I would rather deal with my wife than force her to deal with rat poison. We were forced to abandon our kitchen cabinets and drawers, which were filled with mouse droppings, and clean dishes immediately after eating. No snacks allowed anywhere other than over the sink, and we had to buy more traps. Finally, I had a talk with my wife, and she hesitantly nodded and agreed with me that we needed to do something serious about these mice. We couldn't live like this, and we didn't have enough saved up to move somewhere new, nor hire an exterminator. I bought the poison, sticky traps, and a big jar of peanut butter, but left the poison and the sticky traps in the back of my car. I don't know why, but I just had the thought, I'll put it in next week. I just grabbed the peanut butter and the rest of my groceries and headed inside for the night. The next day, I heard my wife scream bloody murder. I jumped up from bed, my hair and face a sleepy mess, and ran over to her. My wife was shrieking like a madman, and she pointed to something on the floor. I took a closer look and saw that it was a mouse. A dead mouse. That wasn't that big of a deal. We saw dead mice quite often throughout the kitchen. What was strange was that it was half of a mouse. Like it was bitten in half and the head part was the only thing left. And it was oozing blood. We didn't have pets, nor any other pests except for ants in the summer. I didn't know what the hell happened, but it certainly freaked me out, and my wife even more. I had to console her, and we went out to eat to calm her nerves. She felt a lot better after that, and by the time we got in the car to go home, she was laughing again. But when we got home, we checked the traps that we usually set, and only about 3 were there. Huh? I thought, that's a lot less than usual. So I decided that maybe I could wait on the rat poison. Maybe there was some mouse disease that was going around. Dumb thinking on my part, but there were no other signs of raccoons or possums or wild cats. Nothing. I took a flashlight to the attic a few days after and saw nothing except a lot of gnawed wood. Ugh was obviously my first reaction, but I was a little relieved that there weren't any other animal droppings, other than those of the mice. I shrugged and decided to just continue on with my day. That dead mouse was really strange, but I guess I thought that mice were insanely clicky. Oh well, I can't really do anything about it, so I'll just go to sleep. A little thing about me, I'm a very light sleeper. I wake up at the littlest thing, and it's extremely annoying for me. So a few nights back, I woke up to a thudding sound, louder than any mouse I've ever heard. I furrowed my brows and instinctively wrapped my arms tighter around my wife. Was it a possum or something? I heard they were also commonly found in attics. I stayed awake for another 5 minutes before I heard a low groan. It was like a human groaning, but it wasn't a groan in pain. It sounded very satisfied or victorious. I felt a cold sweat coming over me as the thudding and the moan grew louder. And then the noise came right above my head. Something was in the attic, and it was closer to me than I wanted it. Then an ear-piercing screech. That was definitely a mouse. My wife woke up and asked me what was happening. I told her to go back to sleep, but then we both heard another screech. Then another. My wife was wide awake now, and she kicked off her covers, sitting up in shock. She grabbed me by the tank top involuntarily, and I sat up too. We both stared at the ceiling together, shaking nervously. A soft crunch. Then another. And another. Like how a dog would quietly bite through a chicken bone. Silence.
What was that?
My wife asked, staring at me in horror.
Is it an animal?
I don't know. It's probably a possum eating something it stole from the kitchen or something. Ignore it, I responded nonchalantly, so I wouldn't set her off or anything. I tried not to show her that I was absolutely terrified out of my wits. That groan, that didn't belong to any animal I heard of. But it was too little to start a witch hunt over, so I assured her that it wasn't anything bad. We both went back to sleep, but I had a hard time drifting off. The next day, stupid me decided to check the attic again. Maybe to clear my mind of fear, I don't know. I collapsed the attic stairs, went up and turned on my flashlight again to take a look around. The light immediately caught a fresh spot of blood on a wooden beam, and my heart picked up. It was clearly smeared by separate fingers, not splattered. I nearly fell off the stairs. Something with 5 long, distinct fingers had smeared blood on the wall. I don't know if I made a noise. I don't remember much except the piercing fear of finding that blood on the beam. Like that, a groan picked up, an excited one, and my gut told me to get out of there. I immediately went down the steps and closed up the attic as very heavy thuds began making its way across the far side of the ceiling to where I was, right below it. There was scratching and more groaning, but after 30 minutes the thing gave up and drudged away. I was sweating bullets and my legs collapsed under me. I was nauseous and my stomach dropped. I think I dropped my flashlight, but I didn't even notice. I was so scared. What the hell was that? Those thuds or footsteps were fast, really fast. If it was an animal, why did it come towards me? Why didn't it run away? I never went up to the attic ever again, and I didn't tell my wife until we were eating dinner. She paused and looked at me.
I love you, but I'm not in the mood for horror stories today,
she said in a hushed tone as if trying to convince herself I was lying. I began before I realized that she wouldn't believe me. I was putting everything out of proportion because I heard a few sounds. But those groans, those smears, those footsteps, that wasn't a possum. I began looking up listings for apartments or houses for the next few days. I didn't want to be near that thing in the attic anymore. I didn't want my wife near it. And I definitely don't want any future kids even near the house, much less live in it. A few days after, my wife called me over to take a look at the traps in the kitchen and basement. They were all empty, and have been for the entire day. I shivered in my spot. Oh God, has that thing been making its way into my kitchen? It's getting closer.
Did you put that poison you bought in the attic?
My wife asked me, snapping me out of my stupor. No, it's still in my car, I responded. She nodded before smiling brightly.
That means the mice are leaving. Isn't that great?
I nodded after a few seconds before laughing nervously and putting my arm around her. I couldn't sleep that night. I didn't hear the mice gnawing or scratching, but I heard the thing growling angrily. I didn't hear it eat, nor did I hear the mice scream. I just heard it growl. If the mice are really leaving, or that thing ate them all up, wouldn't it find a new source of food? Bigger prey? It obviously doesn't fear us. I don't know what to do. I'm not sure if I can convince my wife to give up our savings and move to another place in time. I know we can't stay here, but I don't know how to leave. I just pray to God each night that the mice will come back and let me live another day.